Hi there, I'm Becky Hammond, and welcome to Isogo TV. Wherever you are on your strengths journey, I want to help you take your greatest strengths and apply them to your everyday work and your everyday life. You know, I'm on the constant hunt to find super tangible and practical ways that all of us, or the people around me, and maybe even myself, can experience more flow, more energy, more successful moments in our lives through our strengths. And so today, in episode 31, I'm super excited to share one of the most effective tools that I've found. Ultra-specific ways to experience more flow and less frustration in our work and our play too. So I've seen it work dramatically in people that are around me, and it's worked for me as well. So let's explore. A while back, a colleague and now friend of mine introduced me to a word picture that he uses to help the people around him have a practical image in their head about how to really apply their strengths to their work or to their life. And I have found that has been extremely helpful to me as well. And that word picture is one of a volume dial. When you turn the volume up and when you turn the volume down, and that there is an optimum volume at which our strengths will operate, where we'll find more flow and less frustration in our lives and in our work when that volume is dialed in correctly, so that we're not obnoxious or irrelevant, and that it matches the environment that we are in. So let's dive into that word picture a little bit more, and then I'll give you a few examples. So let's say, hypothetically, that one of my husband's favorite artists is Taylor Swift right now, and because it's not actually hypothetical, it's true. And let's say I'm in the garage and I walk back into the house and I find that Taylor Swift is blasting on the computer, and I can barely hear myself think. And so maybe I think that actually, yeah, Taylor Swift is authentic and a brilliant songwriter and a musician, but because it's so high, it's lost its value to me. It's obnoxious. It's creating frustration in my own body because it's so high. So then let's say he adjusts and I walk out of the room, I come back in, and David says to me, "So now what do you think?" And I listen as hard as I can, and I can barely hear any music coming through the speakers. Now he's turning it down so low that the brilliant words of her 1989 album are barely recognizable. So they've become her brilliance becomes irrelevant. It becomes almost unnoticeable. It doesn't have any impact on me anymore. So then I kind of moving into the car, let's say I jump into the car and I'm listening to, one of my favorite podcasts. I'm into Pat Flynn and a new one, Interview with Awesome People these days. And I put in my earbuds, which may or may not be a safe thing to do when you're driving. And I start my drive, I'm listening, and then I jump on the freeway. And as I'm on the freeway, I realize, man, I can hardly hear this, so I turn it up. And it's probably turned up to 3/4 of what the volume allows. It's pretty much blasting in my ear, but I can just, it's appropriate. I can hear it now and hear what's going on. So then I get to where I'm going, I get off the freeway, I get in my parking spot, and all of a sudden I realize, man, this is blasting in my ear. How in the world was I listening to it so high? Because now there's no road noise. There's no, the sound of the traffic is no longer there. And so the silence, the environment has now created a more appropriate environment for me to turn down my volume, because there's not the distraction of the environment anymore. And that's what using our strengths and thinking of them in the word picture of this volume dial is like. It's that there's times when you can have it way too high and it's obnoxious. Times when you turn it way too low, or maybe it is just kind of constantly low for you. It's a natural talent, but you never really turn the volume up so that people around you can see it. So it becomes irrelevant or unnoticeable. And then there are certain environments that your strengths will need to adjust, so that in one environment, let's say at work, you need to turn that up in order to be optimized. It's like driving in freeway traffic. It has to be turned up for people to be able to see it. That's going to provide value when it's turned up higher. Or maybe that same strength in a different environment would be super frustrating to somebody, so that you really need to turn it down to be more optimized. You experience more flow and less frustration when it's actually turned down a little bit more in that certain environment. So for example, the other day I was sitting working on the computer. It was late. I wasn't going to bed, but David was headed up to bed, and I was a little bit frustrated about the challenge that was in front of me, and I just said, I can't see where this is going. And he said, oh, I can. He perked up. His futuristic strength was like, he started turning it up, because I had invited that in, and he started laying out a picture of what life and work could look like. And by the time he was done, he was all energized because he was using that talent. And I was filled back up because, like, okay, yeah, that gives me good motivation to do what I'm doing right now, so that I can start to move towards that picture that he had painted. And, he left and said, if you ever need to know your future, just let me know. And he went off to bed. But so that was adapting that futuristic to the environment, because let's say he started to use that same awesome talent, but when we are all as a family trying to get out the door in the morning, trying to get breakfast on and get a 3-year-old to finally put his shoes on and get out the door, and he started painting a picture of what life could be like, that would be frustrating. So he's doing the exact same thing, but in an environment that doesn't call for it. So that's a place where he would turn the volume dial down to be optimized. So I love to use this word picture in my workshops with the teams that I work with, and I have a activity that I use that I'm happy to share with you as well over on the website, so you can go pick that up, where we have a construct to be able to say, think through your top 5 talent themes and where they're too low, just right, or too high, and start to be able to see where your strengths are optimized, where you may need to think about turning them down a little bit, or in certain situations turning them down to not frustrate yourself or frustrate the people that are around you, and maybe where they haven't shown up enough, where they are maybe irrelevant, or because of shame or a lack of understanding that this is something that's really unique about you, or because they were, maybe pressed down in your family that you grew up with, that they aren't, the volume is low, that you're not offering them as much as you could be to be able to offer value through that strength. And the other day, as I was going through this activity with a group, they said, okay, I get this, I see this, but what do I really do with this? Like, how does this really help me in my work now that I've filled this out and I figured out where I'm optimized and where I'm too high, where I'm too low? And it's really a starting place. It's a starting tool to have conversations with the people around you. So for example, with your manager, you can say, if you're using this in a work environment, you can say, hey, this is what I discovered about how I'm using my talents, or how I'm using the way that I'm wired to do things at work. And I realize that I'm not really using this area, and I see that we could use, activator in our meetings, or I see how we could use focus in our meetings, because sometimes we get off topic. That really bothers me, but I haven't up until now really spoke up and say, hey, let's keep on task and talk about this, in 5 minutes. Can I offer that? Is that okay? And so you can start to have conversations with the people around you using this assessment, this word picture, to be able to address your own challenges and the challenges of your team, and ultimately to experience more of that energizing flow in your life and less of the frustration that happens to the people around you and to yourself as well. So let's use this. Who doesn't want more flow and less frustration in their lives? I certainly do. So this is an activity that maybe will take you 8 minutes to do. So set aside 8 minutes today and take out a blank sheet of paper and write your top 5 strengths from the Strengths Finder assessment down the left side. And next to each one, make some notes and some specific examples about your current work or your current role, and where you feel like your strengths are kind of dialed into the optimum volume, where you really feel that flow. Or maybe there's some frustration associated with some of them that you can now attribute to them being turned up way too high or way too low, so maybe they're not showing up at all. I find this to be most helpful if you get very specific about the roles, the tasks, the responsibilities that you're thinking about. So just kind of zero in on one area of your life. Maybe that's work, or maybe that's something that has to do with home. And if you need to or want to, you can apply it across all the different roles and responsibilities of your life, kind of one moment and one activity at a time. And as I mentioned in the episode, I have a worksheet that I use in my workshop experiences that goes along with this exercise. So if you'd like to head over to isogostrong.com in association with the blog post on this episode, you'll find that there to be able to download. And along the way, if you get stuck or you have questions or you just want to dialogue about this, I would love to connect with you. So reach out to me and I'll get right back to you. Because these kind of 8-minute segments of intentional work on our strengths are what it takes to really bring out the brilliance and the energy of your strengths that you can use in your everyday work and your everyday life. Thank you for being a part of this Isogo Strengths community and the movement to begin to eliminate that hate and strife and unnecessary frustration that happens every day in our work and in our lives. And if Isogo TV has been something that's been useful to you, I would love for you to rate, review, and share. You can head over to iTunes and leave a review there that helps boost us in the ratings and gives more people more opportunity to experience what it's like to have more success and less frustration in their lives. And share with the people around you, your family, friends, even just one person who you think could benefit from the message of strengths. Thank you for being with me here today, and I hope that you come along with me again next week on Isogo TV.